Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome everybody to the glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, and we are podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. Ryan has alerted me that showers could be coming again, which is going to drive me crazy. You know, we don't like the rain in Southern California at all, but we'll have to trudge through it. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, and RHOLM22 is Ryan's, and we have a special guest, former Trojan, former Raider, David Ausberry. How you doing today, David?
Hey, what's going on? I'm doing well, and yourself?
Good to have you on. Good to have you on here. So this channel is USC and Raiders, so you fit right into that mold. So I'm happy to have you on. So first of all, I want to ask you a question. Post football, like, what are you doing right now? Like what are you up to now right now?
All right, yeah. So post football, you know how it usually goes with football. It kind of just ends abruptly, and you kind of feel your way out through things. I ended up landing in environmental and safety. I deal with a lot of chemicals, a lot of dangerous stuff. I sort of manage these large shipments of a lot of chemicals, a lot of the stuff that you see. Some of the stuff is crashing all over the place lately. Not my loads particularly, but a lot of hazardous waste and chemicals nowadays. And I'm in the safety realm, doing a lot of things, and trying to move my way up in that industry right now. Football is still in the picture. Coaching is still in the picture. But yeah, I'm having fun doing that right now. Just another side of life for a little bit. But I'm doing well.
Good. We love to hear that. So let's start off with USC, right? So it's funny because they interviewed Chris Carter and a while back, and he said they asked him if he could come back as a pro or come back as a Buckeye. He said, "Oh, a Buckeye." In 2 seconds, right? I think a lot of football players, that kind of surprises some people, some fans. So if you had to come back as a Raider or a Trojan, I mean, we fighting on, or we Raider Nation? Because it seems like it's really cool for both, but I mean the ties to college, it's just like kind of really cool for a lot of guys that experience playing in Division I college football.
Well, there's a lot of different factors nowadays. They're both getting paid now, so
it's all good though.
There's the NIL deal there, right? That's going on. So, but in all seriousness, maybe. Oh, that's a tough question. I would say the the pro game is sacred. The NFL is it's something like it's 100% different from college. Obviously, the ball, the ball spins a little bit differently, but there's nothing like warming up on the NFL Sunday.
Okay.
I don't think you can duplicate that feeling. There's sometimes in high school that you play on Saturdays, the same days as the college guys. So you kind of, play on TV with the college guys, but you never play on TV, on the Sunday of the NFL, right? Yeah. So, I'd probably edge it out. I would say playing pro ball will probably edge it out.
Okay.
149.
Cool. Right.
Probably made more money as a pro, but I don't know. USC back in the day under Pete Carroll. Who knows? But I just wanted to ask you, like, I remember I'm a USC fan, huge Raiders fan growing up. Do you think, like, in today's environment, a bigger wide receiver / tight end that could detach from the line of scrimmage, win one-on-one matchups, do you think that you would be a better player in today's NFL than you were when you played, 10, 12 years ago?
Yeah, I'd probably say so. I did a lot of it when I was with the Raiders. I probably didn't get the ball as much, but it's all right. But I think the game has changed a little bit. There's a lot of faster tight ends, a lot of guys that you're not, putting in position to block as much. We're using a lot of extra tight ends now, or your offense is just, you have a spread offense nowadays. But probably, I think you might be right. Probably a little bit different player if I was, maybe a little bit different way, but it's all right. I did what I can do. Um, you know, I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter about it.
How did you played for Hugh Jackson with the Raiders, right?
Yeah, I love Hugh Jackson. He was a guy that took a chance on me. Um, I got to visit with Coach Hugh Jackson, Coach Al Saunders, on a visit just before the draft. We were still in the lockout, but it was just like almost a college like visit. You go visit the facilities, talk with the coaches. I was prepared to work out. So once I kind of got a feeling for those guys, um, getting to see the facility, getting to shake some hands, I was like, oh man, this thing might be real. I might be able to play in silver and black. I grew up 2.5 hours away. It was no drive at all to go home. But yeah, getting to play for Hugh Jackson, that was special. It was really fun, really challenging. Um, but yeah, I wish I got to play for him a little bit longer. But hey, things happen in the NFL a little bit faster than you expect sometimes.
Especially with the Raiders,
A
when you were
little.
around kind of that time. But how was
I'll,
practice with Hugh Jackson? Was this as fun as on Sunday? Because I just remember he was pretty creative. You guys ran a lot of trick plays. He was always a step ahead of the defense. Was practice just as fun during the week running some of those plays?
well, practice was tough, if you ask me. It was I was drafted into a very excuse me. I was drafted into a very veteran team. So it was a huge transition for me to go from wide receiver to tight end. So for me, I was exhausted after every practice, mentally and physically. I was always just trying to jump out on the film, trying to overachieving, just trying to stay around, right? The NFL is a scary place, but he a lot of guys had a lot of respect for him. Um, yeah, he was a tough guy. There was no nonsense going on, but we tried to keep a light energy, amongst each other, but when it was time to go, it was time to go. And he was serious. He was serious when he needed to be. And again, I love the guy. Hey, he was the guy, he kept it real with me, and he helped me out. And a guy that, got in my face and woke me up a few times. So
And then he brought over obviously Carson Palmer, the ex-Trojan. How was it being around when Carson showed up? Because that must have been a huge lift that year after Campbell got hurt.
well, yeah, again I was drafted into that team with with Jay Campbell. Really good guy. He was a guy that helped me make the team. First of all, he used to pull me into the first team huddle, and always used to be on me about studying and whatnot, and just trying to be a pro, right? And then boom, 4 games into the season, he breaks his collarbone, and then boom, D-Mac breaks his toe or his foot, I believe. And then we're sitting here, we're like, what's going to happen? And this is the first time I've been in this situation, obviously, as a rookie. And then we made the huge acquisition, and we bring in Carson. For me, it was huge. And I'm looking at this guy like, oh man, like we got a stud coming in here. Guy really intelligent. Obviously a student of the game. Very, really good leader. I learned a lot from him. I stole a lot of his offense and a lot of his, hand signals and whatnot. But when he came in, we pretty much ran the Carson Palmer offense, and it was a new game for me to learn. I had a pretty good relationship with him, and again, man, that guy brought me along a little bit. So, good
And
guy.
and you were, I believe you were still with the team when Dennis Allen took over and Derek Carr obviously stepped in. And now with the news today that Derek has moved on to the Saints, how was it playing with Derek? Because there's still a bunch of Raiders fans that are huge Derek Carr fans. So what was it like being around Derek?
Derek is an awesome guy. He's everything as as advertised. Super nice, very humble. Um, a guy that you want in your locker room, And it's pretty sad the way things played out as fast as they did. Um, Caught a lot of people off guard. Probably a lot of emotions involved in on both sides of the matter. Um, but that's what happens in the NFL. It's a business. Sometimes it is ugly. Sometimes it is abrupt. You never know what's going to happen. Unfortunately, it just unraveled really ugly for him. But hey, this Derek Carr, he's going to bounce back. He's great guy, great quarterback. He's back with Dennis Allen. Again, I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
Cool stuff there with David Ausberry, former tight end for the Trojans and the Raiders.
Right.
Can you imagine seeing what the combine has become from the time you were there to what it is now? Like it's a primetime event for everybody to watch, and like people are sitting there watching everybody do it. Is it crazy kind of see how that has developed into something special?
There's people that they're calling off work everywhere in America to watch the combine.
Yeah.
It's huge now, and it should be. These guys, I think some of these guys should be celebrated. It's it's a chance for some of the younger guys to get inspired. See some of these freaks of nature get out and move in space, steal some drills. Make some new favorites. I think is good for the for the younger guys. The youth and all that. I think it's really good for them to check things out like this. Just to steal some. Again, for the technical side of it. Learning guys' names, becoming fans of these dudes. There's some really good guys out there. So, I think there's a lot to look forward to.
With the you played in the Pac-10, the Pac-12, Pac-10, right. Pac-12. You ever thought you would see a day where USC would be going
to
leaving the conference and going to the Big Ten? Like is this bizarro world for you watching that?
It's bizarre world, but I love it. Simply because of again, I'm a competitor. Again, I thought it does sound a little bit funny, USC going to the Big Ten. But I think everybody wins. USC gets to play Ohio State. They get to play against Michigan, play against some of the blue bloods. Penn State. I think this is going to be great matchups, great rivalries. Some of these kids from the Midwest getting to come out to the West Coast to come get a little bit of exposure out here. And even for the, guys that are trying to get recruited, I think it's a win-win for both sides, financially as well. But yeah, it does sound a little funny to answer your question.
Yeah. So two things, and I'll give it to Ryan. Can you talk about, the impact of, and you look at USC now, look at Riley coming in, kind of rejuvenating the program. And then David Pop Scott passed away. What did he mean for folks who don't know, what did he mean to the USC program? I know players have been a huge outcry of respect for him.
Right. Now Pops, as we called him, great guy, legend in the locker room. He's one of the core guys of what USC really is. He took care of a lot of the athletes. He was always there for, some of the guys when we were going through tough times where we didn't want to go to, our counselor, or we didn't want to go to our coach, or felt that we couldn't. There was a guy that we felt that we felt a deep trust in to talk to about our feelings and what we're going through as these new experiences come about as new college students. And he was always there for us, and what a guy. He was can't say enough about him, and we all love him. Great guy, and we lost a real one. So
yeah, I think I wanted to ask you about the student athlete aspect of moving to the Big Ten. Do you think it's going to impact, guys making decisions not to stay, on the West Coast at USC University due to the extra travel, losing less time in the classroom? Or do you think it's more about the exposure, just be getting out and playing the best football. I wondered from what you thought on the recruiting side of it.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you on the second on your second statement. I think that the recruiting aspect of again some of these kids from the Midwest, hey man, I might be able to play at UCLA or USC now, and you're going to see some of these coaches making trips to different parts of the country. It's going to broaden the recruiting horizon, if you ask me. It might boost the level of play in the Big Ten. We never know. Um, but again, I think it's a great move. I love it. I mean, again, I love the Pac-12, Pac-10, and all that. But at the same time, again, we're going to get to see some huge matchups. Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State. There's going to be some. There's going to be some. There's going to be some big shows.
What do you think about Caleb Williams? Do you think that he can repeat next year and win the Heisman?
Yeah, I think so.
He looked good in silver and black, but I don't want the number one pick.
No, there to the number one pick, but yeah, that dude's a freak. There's no question about it. Again, I saw a lot of that dude in high school, so again, I think he's exceeding what he was supposed to be doing already. I believe so. I think he's exceeded expectation. But can he repeat? Yeah.
I hope so.
I hope so too. Usually they don't like guys to repeat, so they kind of find a reason not to give it to him twice in a row. But with the weapons he has and with the play caller he has, that could definitely happen.
There's some stuff going on over there. They're getting the best of the best transfers, and again, a lot of the transfer portal has changed the game.
Yeah. No question.
It has hurt a lot of kids, but at the same time, I mean, a lot of the schools are benefiting from this. They're getting a lot of good players. A lot of new schools are popping up with bigger, better players. They're able to compete, and a lot of these guys are not leaving college with a false sense of what being a football player is. And you don't always have to be unhappy in your situation. Sometimes, I guess you're given that option of free agency and a sense of free agency in college now. But yeah, there's a lot going on. But again, I think everything is kind of changing for the better. Sorry for when I've talked topic a little bit, but
that's fine.
That's fine. Cool. Anything else, Ryan?
No, pretty good. I want to thank you, obviously, for coming on and spending some time with us and being able to connect the Trojans and the Raiders on our show, because Dwayne has two different shows, one with USC and obviously this one with the Raiders.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it, man. It was a good time over there at Silver and Black. Appreciate my time. Met some nice people. Met some big time players, I believe. It was cool, man. Good experience.
Yeah. As they say, once a Raider, always a Raider. So
yeah, man. Yeah, it's serious, man. And I appreciate that. It's an honor, and what more can I ask for?
No problem. Hey, and if you can follow him on Twitter if you want to.
Yeah.
It's going to be D Ausberry 2525. So definitely a cool follow too as well. So you want to check that out, Raider fans and Trojan fans. You can follow David there. So thank you for joining us here on the podcast, man. Appreciate the time, brother. Take care, brother.
Appreciate it.
All right. I want to thank David Ausberry for joining us here on the Put On Raiders podcast, and talk a lot of USC stuff too as well. We're gonna take a short break, and then we're gonna come back talk about the combine, because Anthony Richardson got everybody hot and bothered this weekend. All right, cut. 1, 2, 3. Back on the Put On Raiders podcast. First show in a while, but you came back at the right time. We could talk about, before we hit the combine, I did say combine, but the Raiders' former quarterback Derek Carr has now it was probably the team that everybody predicted him to go to. the New Orleans Saints. He's going to be a New Orleans Saint when a new league year or whatever starts. We have thoughts about that. What's your first thoughts about that, Ryan?
I think it's a good fit for him. It's obviously one of the 3 or 4 places he was rumored to go, and obviously he took a visit there when the Saints agreed to trade compensation. But with kind of how they were with the cap situation, it's going to be very hard to trade for that contract. So he got a jump start. The Saints got a jump start. But I think offensively, you look around, he's going to have Alvin Kamara. He's going to have a veteran offensive line with Ryan Ramczyk there. They have McCoy at center. They Ruiz from Michigan they took as a guard, so they have some pieces on the offensive line. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, are some pieces. So there's some pieces to work with. It's an older roster. It's an aging roster. They've lost some pieces just due to salary cap stuff over the last couple of years, but it is a front office that's willing to spend money. The owner, the GM, can work contracts. They create cap space every year. It takes hard cash to do that, and the owner's willing to do that. So it's a team that's going to go all in around Derek Carr here. They have a defense. They're going to have to stay healthy. That's my one concern. It's an older roster, but they're in a division where Derek Carr is now the best quarterback in that division. So there's an opportunity for them to potentially host a playoff game if they can win that division. So it's a good spot. Obviously, those other teams are going to have additions at the quarterback position. They're not going to go into 2023 with the current quarterbacks they have. But for now, on March 6th or 7th, whatever day, I think it's March 6th. I at least track of time this time of year. He's the best quarterback in the NFC South. There's no arguing that.
Yeah, I mean, and this is NFC, we know about the gauntlet of quarterbacks that are in the AFC. He has an opportunity to kind of rebrand his career and go out there and do it. The current regime with the Raiders, we're not gonna. I mean, they weren't gonna die on a vine with Derek Carr. Like for them, he didn't do it for him. They didn't want to go. If they said, "Hey, if we're gonna fail here, we're gonna fail with our quarterback." They gave him an opportunity to do so. There weren't enough touchdowns in the red zone. There wasn't enough whatever for them. There wasn't a lot of different things we can go into that we've gone to ad nauseum in the past. But now, this is the Raiders are 100% in the quarterback business. They were once they made the move to start Stidham the last 2 games. We'll see what moves they make as we shift kind of to the combine here and the draft. As far as what we saw in the combines, and I'm not sure how much you were able to catch. My thing about Anthony Richardson is as soon as he went to the combine, I mean, people who cover football were saying when fans would tweet his stats at Florida, people were saying F those stats. Just say, hey, look what we did in the combine. This guy's the complete package. Don't miss out. What are your concerns about that approach to Anthony Richardson?
I think you have to look at it from a scouting perspective, and that the game tape matters. What you do on the field every Saturday and how that translates to the game on Sunday, it matters to a front office. It matters to the scouts. It matters to the GM. Mm-hmm. Everyone knew that Anthony Richardson was going to test very well in shorts running around. We knew he was explosive. We knew that he was going to run a fast 40. We knew he had a rocket for an arm and can throw routes against air when there's no defenders on the field. Mm-hmm. The position of quarterback is much more nuanced than that. I mean, everything happens very quickly, and Anthony Richardson is going to have to improve his accuracy. And if he can be a dynamic player at the position. Now, improving the accuracy of a quarterback is something that's not that easy to do. A lot of it has to do with lower half mechanics. It has to do with decision-making. It has to do with making the right reads very quickly, and then having the ability to get the ball within a catch radius and usually – can you take the dump off and hit the running back? Can you get the quick tight end over the middle? It's not always about throwing the ball down the field. Mm-hmm. And Josh Allen was able to improve that. Was the one question coming out on Josh Allen. He played at Wyoming. There wasn't a lot of talent around him. He improved his accuracy. It took 3 years to get there. Can Anthony Richardson do it? Yes, he can do it. Is it statistically probable that he's going to do it? Probably not. So as good as he did athletically in the testing, I don't think it's going to change a lot of front offices' views of what they saw on tape and in their live looks last year. He's only played 13 games.
Yeah.
The track record of quarterbacks that have made 13 or less starts is not very good. So while everyone wants to get out there and push him into the top 5 now, I still think at the end of the day, he's probably going to be the 3rd or 4th quarterback off the board here. I don't think that he's past Stroud or potentially Young based on tape. Now, teams that might have reservations on Young due to his size, his physical stature, might move Richardson above him. Some teams still might prefer Will Levis because he still performed pretty well. Again, teams are going to go back to the tape. So I think when scouts get together and they see this, and guys test really well, it makes you go back to the film and what did I miss? What's correctable? What's not correctable? I don't think they just automatically start tossing the names up on a board and just start moving around based on testing. But at the end of the day, when you're picking in the top 10, you're looking for dominant physical traits, and he has those, but he's going to have to answer some other questions. If he wasn't a quarterback, I think there'd be less questions because you're looking for, let's say a defensive back or a defensive end, a wide receiver that has elite physical traits. That might mean a little bit more, but when it's the quarterback, the job of playing quarterback is much more than just being an elite athlete.
Yeah, no question about it. Because we've seen some elite athletes play quarterback, and it didn't pan out. It didn't pan out well. So, and he had. Listen, like I said, this channel is USC and USC and Raiders. In my research for the USC team, USC's current roster, 2 of those offensive linemen transferred from Florida to USC, and he had time. Like he has time. He had time to process. And the college game is very different from the pros. You can find completions in the college game much easier. And if you're struggling to find it and read defenses there, I think that's something. He's a project. Like he's still going to be a project at the position. We knew he was going to blow it up. I mean, some guys are going to not draft exceptions. That's why maybe Bryce Young might fall down a little bit. Because he doesn't have those elite physical traits, but he has that game tape that makes you say, okay, he can do something special. So now that I'm knocking Richardson, I'm just saying, like, just take a deep breath and pause. I think him sliding would be interesting spot for the Panthers, because if the Panthers are sitting there, they need a quarterback. He's probably a good prospect to grab, and you wouldn't have to necessarily start him this year if you didn't want to. You'd be pressured to, but maybe you wouldn't have to start him immediately.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important on what team he goes to and how the offense is structured. He has the ability to use his legs, get away from pressure, pick up first downs, get touchdowns with his legs. He needs to go to an offense that's going to be able to allow him to do that. And can the Raiders with Josh McDaniels mold into that kind of offense? Sure, they can if they're willing to do that. But you're going to have to be patient. Staying on. My concern with the accuracy is being able to stay in the right down and distance, and getting to 2nd and 6, 2nd and 4, take the check down, and not being 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, and then he's got to start reading all these defenses and all these blitzes. No matter who the rookie quarterbacks, we name any of the 4. If they get into 3rd and 10, they're all going to struggle. Yeah. So I think you're going to have to be patient, and it could be a guy like Josh Allen is as great as he is now. It took him his 3rd year to get to that level. With Stephon Diggs coming in, he was not very accurate his first 2 years. Yeah. So I'm not saying Richardson can't get there, but it's going to take time, and you're going to have to be patient. And is the juice worth the squeeze, as they say? Like, do you want to wait? Yeah. He's going to have to play, and he's going to struggle because he's only had 13 starts at the college level. So he might be worth it, but some team's gonna roll the dice.
Yeah, they're going to. There's no question about it. Bryce Young did not do. I mean, like, people made a big deal about him not throwing, and obviously the height. I guess he weighed in at 204. Is that a situation where you're another cause for pause as far as that, guys? Because I mean, you don't, like I said, like, with people will draft within physical parameters because that's what they feel like needs to be in their system, and that's what's worked in the NFL for years. If you do drop out of that, the height weight situation, Does it make you worry about how slight of a build that Bryce Young has?
It is a concern, and there's a risk with taking a player of that physical stature at that position because we haven't really seen it work. Now, it's interesting because the comparisons immediately to the height and weight were Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, who are both much thicker guys.
Yes.
I don't know if Bryce Young had weight somewhere on him that we couldn't see because, like, physically, he doesn't look anything close to those guys. He's much skinnier. I don't know where he's carrying that weight, but the team that takes him, the question going to be in the draft room as an organization, they're going to have to overcome is, can he physically hold up for 17 games? And in today's game, I think it's less of a risk because of the way the quarterback's protected. You know, a quarterback of that stature 15, 20 years ago, teams wouldn't take him, not high in the draft, because guys were getting obliterated. The quarterbacks were getting hit all over the place, and they weren't calling roughing the passer at near the rate they are now. But the quarterbacks are protected a lot better now. He has some elusiveness to him. He can get away. He's smart enough to slide when he needs to slide, get out of bounds. He's not going to be breaking tackles. He's not going to be, in the open field as elusive as Lamar Jackson. He's not going to run away from a ton of guys. But if he can protect himself, then I don't think it's that big of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But some front offices and some coaching staffs and scouting departments do have physical requirements that are looking for to play position. So the teams that are looking for the bigger, more physical guys are obviously going to downgrade Bryce Young. There's going to be other teams that the production is going to outweigh it, and they're going to be willing to take him. But he's going to be an exception to the rule. These size quarterbacks just don't normally go that high. In my opinion, I would take him. I would look past the size because of the poise and the ability that he has to make plays outside of structure and be accurate. So there's enough positives in those columns to overweigh the size concerns. But you're going to have a quarterback behind him in case he does get hurt, because you can't expect him to play 17 games every year.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that point. I think even for the Raiders, I know people talked about O'Brien being the offensive coordinator, with Alabama, him coming from him being in New England, and obviously Josh McDaniels doesn't mean that means it's going to be absolutely the same offense. But I mean, the other Raider fans are hoping if they do draft Bryce Young, that those things can correlate to each other. Who else to talk about? We'll talk about Levis real quick. I think there's a sense out there that Raider fans don't like this pick. When I'm going to Twitter Spaces, people were talking about fans. I always want to have my ear out for what the fans are listening, or fans are talking about. So when I hear that, I'm saying, what is it? I'm trying to figure out what they don't like about the guy. I think he probably grades out as the third most draftable quarterback in this draft, because I mean, if you really just look on it, like just look at the whole picture. I do like Richardson, but he's young and he's physical. He can do some exciting things. I would say to myself, with him, do you want to take that chance? Because he's gonna, and also, do you want to wait to 2024? Because can this coaching staff wait to 2024? And you got to think about that as well. We talked about Levis and his performance at the combine. I think he pretty much threw the ball the way we thought he would.
Yeah, I think he showed arm strength. Physically he measured in well. And I think the issue with him is the ceiling isn't the same as it is with Richardson. So if they both maximize their potential, Richardson's obviously the better athlete, and I think some fans are drawn towards the extra running ability that he brings. Not that Levis can't move, but he's not the athlete that Richardson is. Levis is probably a more natural thrower of the football, though. I think that he's going to be a little bit more accurate. He can get away from pressure. He can run.
Not a statue.
But he's not going to do what Richardson can do in the open field as far as explosive runs. He's not going to give you the 50-yard touchdown, the 40-yard touchdown down the field. But as a coaching staff, you don't have to create an offense around Will Levis the same way that you would have to around Anthony Richardson's skill set. So I think coaching staffs are going to weigh that. You can plug in Levis into a pro-style offense. He's played in one in college with Liam Cohen, who was with the Rams for a while. So I think fans just they look at like, if everything goes right, which one of these guys, who has the highest ceiling, and that's Richardson. But Richardson also has a lower floor. Like there's a much bigger different outcomes that can come out with drafting him than you can with Will Levis. I think with Will Levis, he's probably the third quarterback off the board. Some teams might have him second based on, again, the physical size. He passes the eye test when it comes to physicality that Bryce Young doesn't. But this is going to more be the eye of the beholder. Which teams like which of these quarterbacks and who's willing to move around to get them? So I think most teams are going to have these four lined up differently. It's just going to matter of who's picking when and who's available. There's not going to be a consensus around the league on the order of these quarterbacks 1 through 4.
No. Do you like? Do we like the CJ confirm what we thought it was? Thought he was. I thought it just looked.
Yeah.
It looked natural. It looked smooth. I mean, he really. I mean, ever since I watched that Georgia game like all 22 like 3 or 4 times. I thought he played fantastic in that game. I thought he had a really good collegiate career. And to your point, he just has the experience and has a lot of starts to his name. Like. The 13 starts is what really worries me about Richardson, and I just worry about like people telling me with Richardson over and over, don't worry about it, don't worry about this, don't worry about the stats, don't worry about this, don't worry about this, don't worry about that. And I'm like, I mean, he needs to. I mean, it'd be nice if he played a little bit more than he did in college. But I think CJ kind of, for us at least, for me and you, I think I don't know about that he kind of confirmed as the number 1 quarterback in the draft for a lot of people.
I would still lean Bryce Young personally, just because the tape and everything that he's done. And I think that he has that little extra as far as escapability, improvisation, being able to make plays when they're not there, that I don't think Stroud has shown consistently. Stroud would be number 2 for me. Those to me are clear separators, 1 and 2. And then it's eye of the beholder whether you like Levis or Richardson is the next quarterback. The fans that say, forget about the extra, don't worry about that. When it's 3rd and 9 and he misses a wide open receiver, they're going to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. They're
going to worry about it when Devontae Adams is on the sideline throwing his helmet because the guy misses him wide open. So it's easy to say, don't worry about it now. Talk to me on Sundays next year when he's playing quarterback. We shouldn't worry about it.
Exactly. I mean, accuracy you can get better with accuracy. We see Jalen Hurts do it. We saw Josh Allen do it, and then I think the one thing about it too is like one thing with all these guys, like who's the hardest worker. I do think you're a good point with CJ Stroud too as well. I didn't see the escapability that he showed in the Georgia game consistently when you watch it throughout his career. That was just like he kind of went into his bag a little bit in that game, but I was like, where was that bag? Against Michigan, against some of the other teams, he has that ability to do so. But he was kind of, maybe I don't know if it was reluctant or coached out of him or whatever, or he just, I'm not sure. But like it just seems like I saw it then, but I didn't see it a lot outside of that game.
No, and he didn't show it consistently week in and week out over the last couple of years. He showed it in the Georgia game, but why didn't we see it in the other games when he had the opportunities to make those kind of plays? And maybe at Ohio State, they wanted him to stand in the pocket. They had those 2 mountain of tackles, and they wanted him to stay there and take the hit and throw the ball down the field to the explosive weapons they had, whether that was Smith and Jigma, Garrett Wilson last year, Chris Olave, obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. He had a plethora of guys down the field that if he could just hold on to the ball, they could get open. Yeah. So maybe that had a lot to do with it. And a lot of this, again, is going to, and you mentioned it, who's going to be willing to work. How are these guys wired? We don't know that. The coach, that's the job of the scouts in the front office. Like these guys have to be wired right. They have to be the first guy in, the last one to leave. Who's gonna do the work in the film room? Who's gonna stay behind practice? Who's gonna hit the weight room? And how these guys interact with their teammates. Which one of these guys is a natural leader? We don't know that watching it on Saturdays. So those are all questions these guys are going to have to answer. And that's the job of the teams and the scouts to find out through the interview process and just all the work that they do 12 months around the clock.
Yeah. Any other combine thoughts? I mean, the kid from Oregon looks like, I mean, geez, he was phenomenal in his movement. I think one of the comments I heard somebody say He doesn't look like he's even breathing like hard at all when he's going through all these drills or anything like that. He just looked pretty flawless.
No, he's just so smooth and how he
Yeah.
does it. And I think I tweeted a couple of months ago about how effortlessly he moves for a guy that's 6'1", 6'2", 200 pounds. You just don't normally see that.
Yeah.
And I think that he's definitely probably going to be in the conversation if the Raiders decide not to go quarterback in the first round and they're looking for an impact defender in the top 10.
Yeah.
I think you look to him as a true outside corner. I know some guys like Weatherspoon a little bit better, and the fact that he can move inside, but you don't need that outside guy to move inside. You need him to take away the perimeter receiver and match up one-on-one on the outside. And you have Nate Hobbs. You can find slot corners. I wouldn't worry about that. I don't think and I think the defensive linemen had a really good combine. There's some guys that surprised with speed. Nolan Smith's combine was ridiculous.
Yes.
Running 4.39. He probably is a tweener. He's going to fit as an outside 3-4 backer, which the Raiders run. And I think this would be the Raiders are going to take a pass rusher, I think, at some point, because you only have Chandler Jones for one more year.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of corners. I think there's a lot of defensive linemen. I was surprised that the receivers didn't quite run as well on a fast track as people expected. Jordan Addison running 4.55. Now, he had the injury, the lower back, I believe, and pulled himself out of the combine. But the number of guys that were running in the 4.3s and the number of linemen that were running in the 4.5s at that size, and the big guys, the offensive linemen running in the 4.8s, 4.9s.
Amazing.
The size and speed, and these guys are training specifically for these events. Again, it's up to the job of the scouting department to go back to the tape. Like, these guys might run 4.3s in their shorts, but they're playing 4.5 on film with pads on. So figure out why. Like, if you had a guy graded as a 5th rounder and he goes out there and runs a 4.3, like, why was that? Is the game speed not the same as it running the 40? So that's what all these scouts are going to go back and do now is evaluate athletically what they saw versus what they've seen on tape. And if it doesn't align, why doesn't it align? So that's what the scouting department's going to be doing for the next month.
No question about it. A lot of work for the Raiders coming up here as far because it's a big off season for this franchise. So we'll have to see whether or not they're going to be able to do this. Are the Bears have number 1 pick, and then the Cardinals are number 3. Those are the kind of the swing points of the draft. Do you feel like, I mean, the Bears are not going to be able to convince people that they're taking a quarterback, right? So they're just trying to hopefully get somebody gets excited about one of these QBs and gives them a haul for that number 1 pick.
Yeah, and I think without the consensus number 1 quarterback, like, there's not one guy that all teams are going to have above the rest. So again, it's the eye of the beholder. Maybe Stroud, and on the majority of boards, I would assume it's Stroud, but we don't know that. So there won't be an open bidding war. It's all going to come down to who teams think Houston's going to take it to. And if that's the guy they want, they're going to have to go to 1 to get him. And if they think Houston's going to take Bryce Young and they have Bryce Young 3rd or 4th on their board on the quarterback position, then they're going to wait. They're going to wait and hope one of those other 2 that they like drop. Arizona's the interesting spot because I think that's going to be where teams are going to go. If we see quarterbacks go 1 and 2, and then the teams are high on Levis or they're high on Richardson, they're going to have to get to 3. They're going to have to get up there and get them. I think Seattle's a swing point. They just re-signed Geno Smith today, 3 years, $105 million. So obviously they won't be in the quarterback market, I wouldn't think. And what happens to these defenders? I think with everything that's coming out about Jalen Carter and the questions about the off-field makeup, that he might slide a little bit. That's going to push another quarterback up to another potential trading spot. I think Will Anderson comes off the board pretty quickly in the top 5. So I think at 7, the Raiders are kind of in no man's land. They're going to have to move up if they want one of these quarterbacks. And what do they do at 7 if they stay there? It's probably go to the defensive side and look at one of these corners. And I mentioned months ago on our podcast that I thought the Raiders were going to go corner in the first round. I still think that if they don't go quarterback, they're going to go corner.
If they can't get one of these 4 guys or whatever, is that just a kind of a nightmare scenario here for them? Because them signing Jimmy Garoppolo and I don't know if we would consider that a huge upgrade, especially with the one thing I would say about whether you like Derek or or you don't like Derek, he played on Sundays, and that's something you couldn't count on for somebody like Jimmy G.
Yeah, availability. Jimmy G's not available. He gets hurt frequently and doesn't finish half the seasons almost. And I think if the Raiders have to come away with one of those 4 quarterbacks, whichever one they like, they need to come away with them at this point. The fans that sit back and say, take Tanner McKee in like the 3rd round or 2nd round, wait for Jake Harbor from Fresno State.
Get Hooker.
You cannot compete in the AFC West with those guys at quarterback. You can't. Maybe if you were in the NFC South, maybe if you were in another division, you're not beating Mahomes, you're not beating Herbert unless you have an all-star roster around them, which the Raiders aren't close to having. So you need to have a quarterback who's a difference maker. Those guys are not difference makers. So they can't come out of this with that, or those coaches are going to be out. If they go into the season and it's Jimmy G or Baker Mayfield and Tanner McKee or Jake Harbor, the Raiders will have a new coaching staff in 2024. They need a quarterback that can be a difference maker, that can be here for 10, 12 years and compete and beat those guys.
Yeah.
And it has to be one of those top guys. The fans that say wait till 2024, well, every fan base wants to wait till 2024. Every team can't do that, and there's no guarantee you're going to have a top 2 or 3 pick next year in order to get one of those. So if the Raiders decide, hey, we like quarterback X, and they have to give up multiple picks to go get him, then do it. Go get him. Go get the player you want to build around. Because Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler won't be here if they're not able to secure the quarterback they want in this draft. So if it means going to 1, go to 1. If you have to go to 3, go to 3. And we'll see what happens. But they're not going to fix this roster in one offseason. I see a lot of Raider fans like, trade back, get multiple picks, take a quarterback in the 5th round. That's not going to help you. You need a quarterback that can come in and develop with the offensive talent that's around them, fill defensive needs through free agency, hopefully hit on some mid-round picks. You're hoping on the development of Diablo and Hobbs coming back healthy. Hopefully Merrick takes another step forward, and you can find 2 or 3 more pieces. They're not going to fix this roster in one offseason. And they're trying to compete to make the playoffs next year. You can do that with the right rookie quarterback, but you're going to have to make all the right moves around him.
Yeah. I mean, right now, currently, I think the way I like it is just to go out there and get the rookie quarterback, get him playing on that deal. You got Jacobs. You have a guard situation that you have to fix. They have right tackle. I would love a big time right tackle, but those guys cost money. They got to start investing some money on the defensive side of the football. So I mean that's just the way they're gonna go. So they have a lot of money to spend. So we'll see what they do with that. I'm gonna throw some free agent names out, or potential free agent names are out there for you. Khalil Mack is might be cut by the Chargers. How much would it cost to get Khalil Mack back, and would the Raiders be interested in that, you think? Or they gotta go cheaper?
That's a tough one because he's not coming for free.
He's not. No.
You're probably looking at somewhere in the. He's a little bit older. I would still assume he's looking for a contract in the $18 to $20 million range. I don't think it's going to cost you $25 or $30 million at this point, but to be able to put that kind of money into that position at this point, I don't think they'll do that because they still have Chandler Jones under contract for another year.
Mm-hmm.
You've already invested in Crosby and Jones. You're tying up like $40 million in cap space. Don't quote me on that. I'm just going off the top of my head, but you can't add another 20 and devote $60 million. Yeah. I think the move is to find a mid-round edge rusher to develop, bring him in behind Chandler Jones, and hopefully hit on that guy. I would say no on Khalil Mack. As much as I love Khalil Mack and I have his jersey in my closet, I don't think that's spending that resource on him at this point is the right move.
Devin White said I had a tweet today about saying goodbye to Tampa Bay, and we all know Levante David is going to be a free agent as well. Like with one of those two guys. Obviously, I think those would be better uses of the money if the Raiders are going to spend money on the defense, which they should be doing this offseason, would be able to go out there and get somebody like David or White. Or White. Go ahead.
I would throw Eric Kendricks in there too. That just got let go by the Vikings. A guy that can play all 3 downs, Really good in the run game. He can cover. He's getting a little bit older, but if you could get him on a 2 or 3 year deal to help solidify the middle of the defense, the Raiders don't need stars at all these positions. They need guys that can come in and be solid contributors. And hopefully you hit on a star or two in the draft, or one of these guys in free agency outperforms. But the Raiders have so many holes, they can't just go get the top guy at every position and hope that that's going to work. They're going to have to hit on these mid-level free agents. And I think the bang for the buck is probably better when Eric Henderson. I'm a huge Devin White guy. That's who I wanted the Raiders to take when they took Cleveland Farrell. He's explosive. You're going to have to use him right. You're going to have to blitz him. He brings a lot as far as sacking the quarterback and getting through those A gaps and just being a disruptor. With that comes some reckless play. He's going to blow some assignments. He's going to miss some tackles here or there, but he's going to make game-changing plays. You're going to have to live with that. If you can live with that, absolutely. I would think at this point, this is his first crack at the apple in free agency, that he's looking for big money if he comes out there. Kendricks has already been paid once by the Vikings. So I think cost-wise, I think I'd rather have Kendricks because it allows me to keep developing and building the rest of the defense. It's not just putting it all in one guy.
He's the oldest. Is Kendricks the oldest?
Out of that group, I believe so.
He's old. I think he's the oldest player there.
And he's not in his mid-30s. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but I would guess he's somewhere in the late 20s, maybe coming up on 30.
Makes sense too. A couple other names real quick before we head out of here. Can you get? And then these just common conversations that I've heard from Raider fans. So I'm trying to gauge how we feel about it. Can you get Jalen Ramsey without giving up a first-round pick?
Can you?
Yeah.
Probably. I think it might cost you multiple picks, like a second, a fourth, and maybe a pick in the following year if you want to do that. I would not give up the 7th pick for him. And is he willing to rework that? Is he willing to rework that contract?
Does he?
Now, if I'm Mark Davis and if I acquire it, let's say they get him for a second round, am I willing to convert his base salary into a signing bonus, add one of the years and spread that out so the cap hits very minimal? Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do I want to give up draft capital to bring him in? And I don't know what his cap hit is off the top, but let's just say 20 million for the sake of the argument. I'm not carrying him in a $20 million cap hit. Yeah. But if I'm willing to trade for him and then write him a check for $20 million, drop the base salary and then spread it out, add 2 voidable years, and the cap hits like 4 or 5 million, then I'm all aboard. But Mark Davis has to be willing to do those type of things like the Saints. He has to open up the checkbook and use cash. Cash is king. I always talk about that. The salary cap's a myth. You know how you get around the salary cap? You have to have boatloads of cash and being willing to kick the can down the road. If you're not willing to do that, and the Raiders haven't, they did it with Al Davis. That's why they got into a lot of trouble towards the end of Al Davis's run. But with Reggie McKenzie, they didn't do it. And so far, they haven't really been doing that under Mark Davis. But now that they're in Vegas and they have 2 years and 3 years under their belt, 2 years of fans, he's got to be willing to spend the money and be willing to do creative things with contracts.
Yeah, I think because we talk about it all the time. That you always talk about how the salary cap is a myth, and it does make a lot of sense. If you can cut the check, you can work around it. I
would add this with the contracts. If you have noticed, the Raiders with contracts over the last couple of years, they haven't been giving out those big signing bonuses up front. What they normally do is give a little bit up front, and then they always have that roster bonus, that payment that comes the next league year.
Yeah.
They've done that a lot. So Mark Davis hasn't really opened it up and said, here's 20, 30, 40, 50 million guaranteed day one. We're going to spread this out. They've kind of given it in waves of installments, which is what most teams don't really do. So the Raiders have been somewhat creative, but as a player, I don't want to wait a year for my $10 million check. I want it right now. I want my $40 million up front. And Mark Davis just hasn't really done that.
Yeah. I mean, because there's owners out there who will give you that $10 million right front. So why not go there? Poyer from the Bills talked about he wants to go to a state where he can keep more of his money. That ain't this state. But Vegas of course Raider fans want definitely get a safety here. Poyer's been pretty good with the Bills for the last couple of years. Would it take that would be somebody who the Raiders would have an eye on, you think? No connection to the coaching staff or anything like that. It's just high. It'd be highest bidder.
I think it comes down to the number. I mean, he's going to be one of the top 2 or 3 safeties on the market. The market's pretty thin. The problem the Raiders are going to run into is this is not a very great free agent market. Guys are going to get released here in the next couple of weeks before the new league year starts that might be a little bit more attractive than the current guys that are out there. Yeah, I think they would have interest in Poyer, but I don't think they're going to go out and reset the safety market. They're not going to give him, $15 million a year on contract. But we'll see. Maybe they're like the Derek Carr contract that had that $50 million balloon on the last year just to make it look prettier than it was. Maybe they'll do something like that to appease the agent. But these contracts are really only worth when we have to break down the details on what they really are. Derek Carr's contract was reported at 4 years, $150 million. We all know now it's 2 years, $60 million. There's offset language for that additional 10. So some are over 2 years, $70 million. It's really 2 years, 60, because if he goes to another team, there's opposite language where if he gets paid by his new team, then the Saints are off the hook for that 10 million. So it's really how these are worded. I would think Poyer would be in play. How would he pair up with Merrick? I still stand by my statement. I thought Merrick played well the last 5 or 6 weeks. Once Abram was let go and they used him more in the box, more man-to-man coverage, and were able to do more things with him, I thought he played much better than he did for the first 10 weeks of the season.
No question about it. All right, Raider Nation. It's a whole lot going on, and we'll see what happens for Sunday, right? Sunday at 1 or I think 1 noon or 1 o'clock. Free agency frenzy starts. You can see all the promos on the NFL Network kind of gearing up for it. They count on that advertising money out there. So at NFL Network, so we'll see what happens there. Good to have you back, Ryan. I always enjoy having you on the show, and obviously our guest, David Ausberry. I definitely appreciate him spending some time with us as well, man. So, Raider Nation, take care, man. Get some sun before the rain comes.
I do have one final comment. Hopefully this year we don't have to record an episode that's still in the vault when they weren't doing anything for the first week of free agency, and then all of a sudden Devontae Adams and Chandler Jones showed up on their doorstep. So that show will stay in the vault. And hopefully we don't have to do that again this year.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't happen. That's still funny. That's still funny. That's still there. I would say one thing too before we get to congratulations to Darren Waller, who got married this week,
and Max Crosby. They both got married.
Both got married the same week. Good for them. Both of them. I didn't see Max have that happen to him as well. So good for them. Hopefully it's better than my first one. That's all I got to say. All right, Raider Nation. Take care.
Take care.